Hey, it's Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com, and today I'm coming to you with some winter lawn care no-nos. In this video, I'm going to share with you 6 big-time mistakes that lots of people make in their lawns during the winter, or at least they're tempted to. I don't want you to make those mistakes. My job here is to help you have the best lawn possible. Let's get into it. One of the first stumbling blocks that lots of people make in the lawn during the winter is they find themselves bored in the month of January, and it happens to be a somewhat warm day, and they walk the lawn and they find random winter weeds. There's nothing particularly alarming about finding the weed. The mistake is when you go into your garage and you grab a weed killer and go to kill it. If you walk with me up the hill, you'll see lots of dormant grass. But when you look close, you'll find tons of green weeds that look like they're growing. It would be a mistake to go pull any weed killer out and try to kill those now, mostly because it's just too cold. The simple fact of the matter is the vast majority of weeds and weed killing products are designed to work in warmer weather. So although the weed looks like it's growing and it seems like to be a nice day, chemically speaking, the plant is not going to absorb the weed killer the way it's supposed to, and it's not going to react the way it's supposed to. Putting weed killer down on the lawn is not going to be very effective during the winter, and it's going to be potentially harmful since those chemicals are going into the lawn and not actually getting used. Now, regular subscribers of this channel probably know that already, but statistically speaking, 90% of my viewers here do not subscribe to this channel. So I'm hoping that that tip plus the next 5 are going to be particularly helpful for you. Let's get into the next 5 mistakes. So once you understand that, then obviously the temptation is to think, well, maybe I got some weeds in the lawn now. Let's go rifle around in the garage, find my spreader if I have one, find some random weed preventer if I have one, and go put it on the lawn now. It's called a pre-emergent for those of you that don't know. Let's put down a pre-emergent so that we don't have weeds in the spring. All right, so there you go. You find your spreader, you dust it off, you find a bag of weed preventer, or maybe you go buy one. There it is, it says preventer. But here's the thing, you have to apply it in the spring to prevent crabgrass and other stuff, and you have to apply it in the fall to prevent poa annua and other things. There's a big reason to do that, because many of these weeds, let's talk about poa here, that is an annual bluegrass and it germinates in the fall. So you have to put the pre-emergent down in the fall so that it won't germinate. Then that annual grass goes dormant through the winter and then it flowers in the spring. It's one of the first things that comes up in the spring. You can't prevent that in the winter because it has already germinated. Now, conversely, you can't put a pre-emergent down in the month of January, let's say, to prevent weeds that germinate in the spring and flourish in the summer, because the product does not work on seeds that aren't ready to germinate. These products are going to prevent seeds from germinating when the soil temperatures are perfect for those seeds to germinate. Basically, the weather is preventing it from germinating in the middle of the winter. Your product is not. The product will sit on the lawn in the winter and the cold, and it will slowly degrade over the time, and after about maybe 4 weeks or so, it will lose its effectiveness. It will lose its ability to prevent germination of weeds. So once soil temperatures come back up in the spring, the seeds will still germinate and you'll still get weeds. There's no point in putting down a weed pre-emergent in the middle of December. Now that we've talked about why we don't attempt to kill weeds in the winter, nor do we attempt to prevent weeds in the winter, since we're staring at that spreader over there, the next biggest temptation usually is on those warmer winter days when you just want to get a jump start on spring. The temptation is to put some fertilizer in that spreader and throw it on the lawn. See if we can get that lawn going early. This is another big mistake because for the most part, fertilizers are heavy in nitrogen and the grass is still dormant. unless you're actively like mowing your lawn every week or so, towards, I don't know, like early part of March or something like that, your grass is still dormant, which means the root system in the ground doesn't want to absorb nutrients yet. The grass blades on top are not actively growing, so even if you're putting a foliar application down, they don't want to absorb the product and use it. And for the most part, especially in those northern climates like where I live, the ground is frozen. So if you put down product, it will just sit there and eventually it will leach off somewhere when the snow melts. Heavy nitrogen doses in lawn settings are not good when they run off, for a variety of reasons. The same thing with phosphorus. That's what you find a lot in starter fertilizers. The only real product, or let's say macronutrient, that's kind of safe is potassium. Now I have an entire video on potassium. It's kind of linked up here in my upper left, and I'll put it down below as well. But potassium actually has the ability to get absorbed into the root system of plants even during cold weather, but it's not very efficient, and it's hard to find over-the-counter products in the month of January that are just straight up potassium. It's still best just simply to wait until winter is over. For the most part, your grass is not really going to start waking up from the winter until soil temperatures climb up above 45, probably, maybe 40 in the cold season grass zones. And honestly, the same time of year really for the southern grasses, because although the temperatures are warmer there, the grass types that grow there don't like 45-degree soil either. They like things closer to 55 to 60. So generally, if it's January, February, a cold March, you're probably way too early for fertilizers. This fourth mistake that lawn owners make during the winter applies mostly to people who live where it snows somewhat regularly and stays very cold pretty regularly. You see back here behind me, it looks like snow, but if you get really close, this is basically just snow that kind of melted. It's kind of ice. It's just sitting on the lawn. It's cold enough that it's just not melting off. We get enough shade from this little tree up here that it just kind of sits here. Here's the mistake. When we live in climates that are super cold, especially those climates that are damp, if we don't cut the grass short for the winter, these areas that are consistently damp and pressed down by the weight of snow and maybe ice, these areas are prone to fungal infections as spring is starting. Snow mold is the most common fungal infection. It's not particularly horrible, and it is very easily cured, but we don't really want it because that is going to slow the progress of our lawn in the early parts of spring. So the reason I bring this up is that if you have not, let's say it's the middle of winter, January, maybe even early February, maybe the end of December, if you have not cut your grass short and you happen to have a warm enough day where the grass is not like crispy and frozen and frosty, pull your lawnmower out and cut it back. Maybe bag it, because bacteria is not active in your lawn, so it's not going to eat that stuff up. It's not going to like compost into your lawn. But the point is to get that grass short if you haven't gotten it short already. Now, you don't want to scalp it down to the ground or anything like that, but you don't want excessive growth sitting on top. You don't want the grass blades up like this and then flopping over under the weight of snow, because that's where the fungal infection starts. The fifth mistake that people make when they're dealing with their lawns throughout the winter really has to do with high traffic areas of their lawn and not realizing that the damage that you can do to a lawn in the middle of the winter when it's frosty out, when you're walking all over it. Now, to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you a part of my lawn that is always damaged because I walk over it every winter. There's my dogs right there. When they're not in the kennel and they're not in the garage, I walk them from the kennel to the garage. Now, of course, they do spend some time in the yard as well, but this little area right here, going from my door across the grass to the kennel door, is always a little bit matted down. I don't know if you can see it because it's the middle of the winter right now. You probably can't see that, But point being, if you go back, let's say you're a subscriber and you've watched a lot of the videos of the past year or so on this channel, you literally can look at this area in the background of those videos and see that this spot in my yard never looks lush. Dogs are going crazy back there. It doesn't matter how much fertilizer or care I put to that area, it never really grows thick. Simply because through the whole winter, every single year, I'm always trampling this spot. Areas of the yard that you don't trample throughout the winter, especially in the early morning when the frost is on the ground, don't get damaged at the crown level. So the lower portion, the lowest portion of the grass that's above the ground, let's call that the crown. Now, each grass type is a little bit different in structure, but generally speaking, that crown exists, and as it gets stepped on, it kind of crumples because it's not thawed, it's frozen, it's frosty. The damage to that doesn't kill the grass in my situation because I'm not constantly trampling all over it every day. I really just go back and forth on the same spot a few times a day, but you can already see the damage, and it lasts throughout the entire year. If you care about any particular part of your yard, try not to put excessive traffic on it throughout the winter, and certainly try not to put excessive traffic on it in the morning when it is still frosty. All right, if you're watching this far into the video and you're not a subscriber, I have to ask you, go ahead and hit the button. If you're watching this far in and you got questions about taking care of your lawn in the winter, then chances are pretty darn good that you're going to have a lot of questions come spring when everything starts growing again. So hit the button, and now let's get to the sixth and final big mistake that everybody makes. All right, mistake number 6 has to do with trees. Most of us have them. Most of us like raking. I mean, I say like in air quotes. We love raking up leaves and pine needles in the fall. November is the pine needle and leaf season. And look at this. I raked for a month straight, and there's still stuff here all along the fence line. This is one of the biggest mistakes that almost everyone, like seriously, almost everyone makes this mistake. Once we're done bagging up our last bag of leaves, we just forget about the leaves. The problem is, every tree that I've ever seen always holds on to a handful of leaves well into winter and slowly drops them on the ground. The wind blows them around. They all get stuck here in the fence line. And look at this little spot on my lawn. I am not immune to this problem either. When you let leaves pile up along your fence line, things die. The month of January and the month of February really are probably the best times on whatever random warm dry day that you have to come out, grab your rake, and clean up the rest of the leaves that are still there. The thing is that the grass is not growing yet. It is very unlikely that your grass is growing this early in the season, but if those leaves are still there come March and April when the grass does start growing, those spots are just going to get snuffed out, mulched down by leaves. Now, of course, bare spots can be repaired. Pick up those leaves come April, you can fix the spot. But if we can prevent the problem, then that's the best solution of them all. In January and February is the best time to come out and do one last raking job to get all of those leaves, leaf litter, pine needles, miscellaneous sticks and things that have fallen from those trees over the past couple months, get them off the ground before the grass starts growing. All right, those are all 6 mistakes. Now that you know them, don't make those mistakes yourself. Tell your neighbor about them too. Like I said before, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. This is winter. It's January while I'm filming this. Spring is around the corner. It just is. It's going to come here so fast. As spring comes, you're going to want to start working on your lawn to make it look its best. I've got a guide already published here on the channel about repairing your lawn for free, or essentially free. It's a zero-cost lawn care guide. I'll have a link to it, very prominent here. I'm also in the production stages of a full spring lawn care guide, specific to spring. So as winter's coming to an end, it's going to be applicable to you watching this video right now. I hope you subscribe and watch that when it comes out. Take a look down in the description below for links. There might be some links here on the screen as well. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. Please hit that like button if it was, and I'll see you in the next video.